Hello everyone, and welcome back to Animation Pilgrimage, where we take a look at every theatrically released animated film.
Of all time.
Of all time.
Forever and all days.
This week, we are looking at the 1941 Disney's The Reluctant Dragon.
Now this is an interesting one because most of you probably haven't heard of this one.
This one's very hard to find. Very hard to find as in, like, Song of the South hard to find, but also not as infamous as Song of the South. It's a package film, and also a kind of a documentary, but also, like, not. It was a weird little film.
It's like a mockumentary? I don't know.
Sort of.
It's a fake documentary, but actually still goes over the process of what actually goes on.
Right. So the purpose of this film was to show general audiences how Disney films get made. And they have the setup here that there's this guy who has this book who he wants to take to Walt Disney to adapt it into a cartoon movie. And so his wife drops him off at the studio, and then this guy just farts around looking at all the different things that people in the studio do.
Yeah, and eventually finds Walt, and oh look, he's already done it.
Yeah, they've already made the film because he's been off futzing around.
Yup. So it's a relatively short film. It's only like an hour long.
Yeah. And the first, like, half hour of it is in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they get to the ink and paint department...
No, before the ink and paint department.
Before the ink and paint department?
Yeah, it's when they get to the multiplane camera room.
Oh, the multiplane camera room, yeah, because they gotta show off the camera. Whoosh!
In
the pride and joy.
Gorgeous color.
Yeah. And then that's when they move into Technicolor. And throughout the film, you might be wondering, it's like, well, why are you guys covering this if it's a documentary live-action film? That's because throughout this film, there are 4 animated segments. And animated is a pretty loose term.
Some of them are more animated than others.
Yeah. We have the Casey Jr. short, where they're showing how sound is done at the Disney studio.
Yes. We
have the Baby Weems storyboarded segment, which looks way nicer than any of the storyboards would have looked.
Yeah.
They're like very polished storyboards. The Goofy How to Ride a Horse.
Yes, which actually did get taken and put into a later
yeah, like that short's been around.
Goofy shorts and stuff.
And then the last one, of course, is The Reluctant Dragon.
Yep.
Which is like the big piece, the big final piece of the movie.
And that's like, what, 15 minutes long?
Probably. Yeah, I mean, it's still not terribly long.
Mm-hmm.
You're still spending most of your time
with the
live action stuff.
And one important thing to note is that for the most part, probably almost exclusively, everyone you see on screen is just actors, as compared to the actual animators, ink and paint department, other people that actually worked at the studio. These are just actors.
There are
they
a
hired.
couple of people in there. Like, I'm pretty sure Ward Kimball is in there.
And Walt
obviously is at the end. And I feel like when they're in the sweatbox room and watching the Reluctant Dragon, I feel like there are more staff members in there.
Okay. But, like, the most everybody else is just actors they hired to pretend to work at Disney Studios.
Yeah.
Which is a smart and yet silly choice.
Well, okay.
I mean, to be fair, it's like, yeah, I'm sure a lot of those people, A, didn't want to be on screen, or B, were just not going to be charismatic enough to be on screen.
Time to set the stage?
Set the stage.
Okay. So, this was made during the Disney strike.
Oh! Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why there's nobody that actually works there.
Yeah. So, this was made during the Disney strike, and this film suffered pretty heavily because of the Disney strike. A lot of people were, like, outside picketing this movie, and they used, like, the Reluctant Dragon to put on, like, their strike posters as, like, the Reluctant Disney and all that. And I don't know when's a good time to really talk about the Disney strike, but I guess now's as good a time as any.
Yeah, I mean, might as well. This is probably going to be one of those shorter episodes anyways, so
Right.
let's get a little more in-depth as to the behind the scenes.
We'll be talking about the Disney strike in the next episode, too. But
Next Disney episode.
next episode.
Oh, yeah.
We got a lot of Disney back to back.
Right, okay.
So yeah, the Disney strike wasn't just Disney Studios that was having a hard time. Like animators were striking all over the country. The Depression had made it easy for these studios to get the people, like really talented people, in to work for fairly cheap because it was the Depression. But animators after the Depression, once you got into the 40s, all felt like they should have been paid more, felt like, the system that they worked under was really unfair, like the working conditions were really unfair. Fleischer Studios animators were on strike. The Disney animators obviously on strike, and just like cartoonists and animators all over the country were unionizing and all of that.
Probably a good thing.
Probably. In the case of Disney Studios, though, it was... I mean, I don't want to say that they didn't have a reason to strike, but it has been noted by several historians and all that at the time that the Disney studio had the best working conditions of any other animation studio.
Okay.
Really known at the time. And the feeling at the Disney studios before the strike happened was that they were all one big kind of family working together on these movies. And after the strike, obviously Walt felt a little betrayed that, all his animators and stuff turned on him, and it just kind of put the rest of their history together as more of a professional
yeah, I understand what you mean.
Business standpoint, rather than them being all buddies working on this stuff together. And the Disney strike also led to a lot of the old guard pre-Nine Old Men Disney animators leaving the studio because they were the ones who essentially started the strike.
Okay.
So that kind of puts that all into perspective, because a lot of the Nine Old Men, in fact, I'm not sure if any of the Nine Old Men actually took part in the strike.
Okay.
But to the people who were on the side of the Disney strike and all that, what they were complaining about was, there was a lot of favoritism in the Disney studio about, who got to work on what shots, and, it was very much like a kind of...
You're my best bud, so you get to do work on whatever you want to do type of thing. Right,
and Walt obviously kind of had an iron fist control over everything that happened at the studio. If he was like, hey, Ward, you would be perfect for working on Jiminy Cricket. And then you have some of these older animators who are like, well, I've been at the studio longer. Why does Ward get to work on Jiminy Cricket while I'm stuck doing in-betweens on Stromboli?
Okay.
And also, after Pinocchio and Fantasia did so poorly, Walt had to lay off some artists and like their paychecks had been cut back, because it used to be like before Snow White, it used to be that like a certain percentage of the profits of their shorts, and I think even up to Snow White, was divided amongst amongst everybody there.
Okay.
And then after Pinocchio and Fantasia did so poorly, they're like, we can't do this anymore. Also, we're trying to move to Burbank and get you guys a really nice studio to work in. And so they moved to Burbank, they cut salaries, they had to lay some people off. So it's just like a culmination of things.
Baby, we got bad blood.
Yeah, so that's the Disney strike.
Okay. That makes a little more sense why they might have made this movie now as compared to some other time, because they didn't have all their normal people around to completely work on everything. So they're like, well, we'll just do this in the meantime.
Also, though, as a sad note, this film only took $6,000 to make.
Oh.
But, you know how much it made back?
Less than that?
$400,000.
Oh, significantly more than that. Wait, no.
No. Yeah, $400,000. It took $600,000 to make.
Oh, I thought you said 6,000.
No, $600,000 to make.
Mm-hmm.
$400,000 back. So they lost $200,000 on this film.
They're not having a good streak.
No, they're not. And yet look at how, like, well, and obviously too, like they're walking around the Burbank studio.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just showing off these brand new studio buildings.
Yeah. Brand new studio buildings, everything looks nice and clean and...
Mm-hmm. And I mean, and it shows you, like, pretty much everything. It shows you, like, how they take the artist to life drawing classes.
Mm-hmm. The sound
and
room,
all their studies. They do the soundstage room, which, like, I love that part because you get to see them putting that together. And the Foley artists are so cool. Like, I don't have a mind for that. So when I see, like, I really appreciate the artistry of sound design because I don't get it.
Yeah. For those unaware, the term Foley is, I don't know where the term comes from, but it's sound effects, essentially. It's just, when you refer to something as Foley, it's just the sound effects of a piece or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And then they also show off, like, their sculpture department, how they were building sculptures of all the characters.
And all the girls working in the ink and paint department, because that was, unfortunately, pretty much the only job girls could have at the studio.
Although, not at Disney Studios.
Not at Disney Studios?
At Disney Studios, there was, like, a contract where it said that women could only work at the ink and paint department, because that was basically law at the time.
Okay.
But Disney would hire women into the ink and paint department, and if he saw other talents in them, he'd be like, you go to sculpture, Mary Blair, you do all my concept art for movies from now on. And so while I don't think there was ever any women animators, which is really unfortunate, because obviously these women in the ink and paint department were hella talented, because these cells are absolutely gorgeous. You know, as far as other big animation studios goes, Walt was the most liberal in
and forward thinking.
And forward thinking.
Like that.
Yeah, in letting women and African American animators in to work at his studio.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, this is still an issue today.
Yeah.
And I wish it wasn't, but it is.
Yeah, I mean, oh gosh. Just a little thing about animation studios today is, you know, you still have a huge percentage of studios that are run completely by guys. But, I mean, when I went to animation school, the majority of the animation program was women. So.
Yup.
That should tell you something.
And I would say the majority of the best looking work was coming from the girls in the class as well. There's one or two guys in there that had pretty good stuff too, but most of the girls were the ones that were at the top of the class. So, yeah. And that was coming from just a really crappy singular art school. Not even considering the larger...
the larger population.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know there's a lot of, women aspiring animators out there. Keep working, girls! You're doing great!
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, back to the Reluctant Dragon. So yeah, then they show off the ink and paint department, they show off the multiplane camera, which also has like this nice little animated segment with Donald Duck
yelling at the main guy. That's one thing that I appreciate about this whole thing is whoever this guy is, I kind of wonder if he is, or was, I should say, someone that was relatively well known in Hollywood at the time.
Yeah.
Because he just kind of exudes that
I'm here
feeling.
as a cameo kind of thing.
Yeah, and then everybody just like shit talks this guy and like
makes fun of him,
makes caricatures of him constantly throughout the entire thing, which I appreciate quite a bit because he's kind of just a dunderhead.
Chuckle fuck.
Yeah, that seems like a good term for him.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody's like constantly like they make sculptures of him that's like a caricature, so he looks really doofy. When they're in
an elephant.
Yeah, when they're in the life drawing room, they build it up like, ooh, there's a naked girl model in there, and then actually no, it's an elephant that they're drawing because they're working on Dumbo. And the funny thing, okay, while I appreciate this movie for, like, quote-unquote showing off the process of Disney animation, there's things in this movie that I'm like, yeah, that would never happen.
Someone would not erase someone else's work and go over it.
No, that would happen.
That would happen?
That would totally happen. Milt was known for doing that and pissing people off in the studio.
Okay.
But no, just, like, they're in the life drawing room, and instead of drawing realistic, like life drawing and drawing pictures of the elephant, they're drawing, like, cartoon elephants because they're doing this for an audience.
Yeah.
And they want to, like, show, like, oh, well, see, we're looking at real elephants, so we can draw the cartoon elephants, when it's like, that's not how that...
Not actually how that works.
I mean...
No, you draw real elephants while you're looking at the real elephants.
And then you make the cartoon.
Then you take that after the elephant is gone.
And you do some concept art.
You do concept art to get down your models, and then you just work off of the models.
Yeah. But anyway.
There's a lot of shortcutting and stuff like that just because they're trying to make a movie and make it look really nice and pretty.
Yeah.
For example, in a later scene with the storyboards.
Yeah.
Storyboards are...
very rough.
Very rough, really fast. Often the characters that you're trying to represent on screen will be the bare minimum amount of details to understand who it's supposed to be more often than not. Or if you really specifically want an expression on there, you do the expression really detailed and the rest of the body's like, I don't know, a circle or something.
Yeah.
But that's what it is, just to get the ideas and feelings of the story across and like the camera shots themselves. Not so much gotta get it nice and detailed and look really pretty like they do for the Baby Weems segment.
And the Baby Weems segment is rather pretty because you do get to see like these nice I don't know what it is. It's like charcoal or colored pencil or something. And it's all these storyboards, that are really nice and polished, of course, because it's Disney. And all that. The story's weird. I mean, it's just like all these shorts, other than the Goofy one's fantastic. All these shorts are just kind of like throwaway shorts.
Yeah. Random train just driving down the tracks, and that's about it.
Yeah, ends with him getting all busted up and being like, oh gosh, I guess this'll put me behind schedule. I don't know, like, it doesn't have a conclusion.
Yeah, no real conclusion there. The Baby Weems one is, it actually has a conclusion, but it's a really boring story of, oh, super intelligent baby, and then he gets sick, and oh, now he's just a normal baby.
I mean, it is kind of sad, like, the parents are always, like, trying to...
We can't see our baby boy.
Yeah, like, they're always trying to get into these, like, big meetings and stuff to see him, and they're like, no normies allowed.
You gotta have a press pass, see?
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
And then, the Goofy one, obviously, is my favorite.
Yeah, because it's just Goofy being Goofy.
It's just Goofy being Goofy with this horse. And constantly just screwing up.
And, I mean, that one probably hits closer to home anyways, because you grew up with horses. You know horses are straight, dumb animals.
So many of these jokes, I'm like, it's a horse thing. Oh, man, I hate horses. And, like, especially when they're showing the like slow motion
of the trot
of the trot and Goofy, and it's like the guy is like, now here we see man and beast becoming one as they glide across the land, and like
Goofy's like flopping, just like falling to pieces essentially.
I'm like, same Goofy, that right there, been there. It's so good.
And I guess maybe we should actually talk about the Reluctant Dragon now.
Yeah, we should definitely talk about the Reluctant Dragon.
I think that's mainly the last thing to talk about in this, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the Reluctant Dragon itself is the most complete and cohesive story in here, because that's what the whole thing's building up to. Mm-hmm. It's just like a good short.
Yeah, it's like Ferdinand or The Ugly Duckling that we watched earlier. Mm-hmm. It's just a solid Disney short.
Yeah. So the brief summary of the story is there's a dragon, except it doesn't want to fight. But the townspeople are scared, so they get this knight to come in, Sir Giles. And Sir Giles doesn't really even care to fight either, because they'd rather just sit around and recite poetry to each other. And this little boy who's like, what are you guys doing? You have to fight.
Yeah, he has like this book on how
knights and dragons are supposed to work. And he's like, guys, you guys gotta do this. So they pose a fake fight.
It's a great little story about, like,
you don't have
to be these labels.
Yeah.
Right. So I love it. And oh my god.
Just gotta put this out here. The dragon
and Sir Giles are so fucking gay.
I
love them
it's so
much.
Good. It's like, seriously, if you can, just find this short.
Yeah,
and watch it, because Sir Giles and especially the dragon are so gay-coded with, like, how they speak, their mannerisms, the fact...
Oh, bye.
No, simply couldn't. No.
I simply can't do it. I simply can't.
It's like, people are looking for, like, good, well-rounded gay characters in animation.
Gay icons. They're really foppish, but like, who cares? They're so enjoyable.
They're enjoyable and great, and the fact that they're the heroes and played in a positive light, it's not like we're supposed to be laughing and making fun of these guys. I mean, to some extent, but they're not like, haha, look how stupid these guys are or anything.
They're still the main characters, and they still, like...
You're supposed to like them, even if you kind of chuckle at them a bit.
Yeah.
So it's like, these guys are great. Why do people not know about these more? Look at these amazing gay guys.
I just love, like, when they're...
Oh, yes, yes. Well, yes.
When they're reciting poetry to each other, and, like, the little boy's just, like, sitting there, like...
What the fuck is wrong with you guys?
Oh, and he's, like, flipping through his book, and there's, like, these big fierce dragons and these gallant knights.
They're, like, fighting each other to the death.
And then he'll, like, bring the book down and look at them, and they're, like... saying poetry
dancing
about
and shit.
They're like dancing around and singing and saying poetry about like an upside down cake
And a radish.
and a radish. Yeah.
I love how the radish one doesn't even end in rhyme.
Yeah.
He's
I
like,
mean, it doesn't have to. It's poetry.
I know, but it's like the way he was setting up his verse. Like, it was rhyming and rhyming and rhyming and rhyming. And he set up the first half of that couplet, and then he just eats the radish and says, delicious.
Delicious.
And that's just how that
I mean,
ends.
that's so poetry.
It is.
And, but also what I love about it is, like, the boy going to Sir Giles for the first time, and he's like, the dragon, he wants to talk about poetry.
Poetry?
Poetry. And he's like, oh,
I'm quite the poet myself.
And the boy's
What?
like, what?
No. No.
No. Dreams dashed.
Oh, it's great.
It's good stuff.
This is a great short.
Yeah.
And you actually get to see Walt for a little bit
Yeah.
before this one starts.
Yeah, as a younger guy, because, you know, most of the footage we have of Walt is when he was doing The Wonderful World of Disney, and he's considerably older.
Considerably older, and he's more round.
Round? Well, and he's, like, just more of his persona of, like, the Uncle Walt and...
Uncle Walt, the good-natured, how you doing?
Yeah.
Let's be fun.
Yeah.
As compared to the young whippersnapper, upstart,
businessman.
cartoony men that you see in The Reluctant Dragon. So it's cool to see that side of him as well.
Yeah, but I guess to kind of wrap this up, I'd recommend this just on a, like, this is interesting level. You're not gonna get a whole lot of, like, entertainment value out of this.
Other than like, that's kind of neat.
Yeah. Like we said before, like, it's pretty hammy. It's pretty, like, at times it can be just like,
Okay, yeah, we get it. Come on, let's just move on.
Yeah.
These jokes are not hitting at all.
No, it's pretty bad, but the parts of it that are good are just, like, really charming, and it is interesting to see the studio when it was brand new, and them showing it off and all that. That's
and, like,
cool.
One thing that you see a lot in the backgrounds of a lot of these scenes is the concept art.
Oh,
And them
yeah,
working
especially
on
of movies.
upcoming movies.
Right around
Especially
that time.
Dumbo and some Bambi.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of Dumbo and Bambi are in the background. You're seeing a lot of, like, old stuff that's still around for Fantasia.
In fact, you actually see a couple of sculptures for Peter Pan already.
Yes. Yeah. You see concept art of Captain Hook in the background of several shots, and, like, Peter Pan isn't made until the 50s, so...
So they were planning on that for quite a while.
Oh, yeah. For quite a while.
So it's really cool to see all of that stuff, and I'm sure people that were excited to see more Disney films were like, ooh, look at those. I wonder what those are going to show up in and stuff.
Yeah.
Because that would be like, I don't know, if you got to see like a walkthrough of a new studio or video game company or something, and there's just like concept art for upcoming games and shit on the wall, and you're like, ooh,
Yeah.
I know they're making that game. I want to see more of that. No, put the camera back. I want to see. 'Cause
Right.
that's probably what a lot of this was for, like, Disney junkies for this studio that's only existed for 3 movies. I'm sure there wasn't a whole lot of them yet.
Right.
But for us Disney junkies looking back on it, it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's definitely the thing. If Disney history doesn't interest you at all, this probably is not going to be up your wheelhouse. But if Disney history does interest you, definitely check this out. So yeah.
And yeah, so up next we have Dumbo?
I think so.
Dumbo!
Dumbo!
Yeah! Join us back here next time for that episode of Dumbo.
This is called to an upside down cake. Sweet little upside down cake, cares and woes, you've got 'em. Poor little upside down cake. Your top is on your bottom. A Alas, little upside-down cake, your troubles never stop. Because, little upside-down cake, your bottom's on your top.